Hey, how's it going? It's me, the
Name and address withheld.
Very recently, actually at the time I'm recording this exactly yesterday, a modding friend of mine named Gravity, who you might know as the creator of Five Nights in BFBB, as well as the upcoming BFBB Deluxe, made a video talking about 50 obscure facts about everybody's favorite childhood game, BFB. Well, I wanted to do something similar to movie, but let's be real. I'm not very good at finding stuff no one knows. So, not all these facts are going to be obscure, and I sure as heck did not find 50. I should also preface, at the time of me recording this, another YouTuber by the name of Dutsy Waltsy, I believe is planning on making their own version. I saw them say something on Discord about it, and I have not heard anything since, but this also was literally yesterday at this recording time. When that version comes out, I highly recommend you all go watch that too, because trust me when I say, this game is genuinely just bizarre enough to warrant multiple videos on this exact same subject. I can guarantee their video will have a completely different set of facts from mine. Some of these facts were discovered by a speedrunner named Purple Foundation, or just the speedrunning community in general. Some of these were found via the modding community, and some of these were found on my own. I'll also be going in level order. I'm not going to be talking about any interesting global things, which, believe me, there is some interesting things to talk about there. I will be going in level order. So that being said, let's start off with some no cheese facts. No Cheese shares some out-of-bounds geometry with BFBB's Jellyfish Rock, implying No Cheese was built off of said level. However, upon loading both levels in Industrial Park, you would find they actually don't line up anywhere near at all, so it's more than likely they simply just used chunks from Jellyfish Rock. Discovered by Purple Foundation, right under the wall of Z-crates in No Cheese lies a giant brown rectangle. Interestingly, this is not a placeable asset and is baked into the geometry of the level itself. This can be accessed without hacking if you know how to lag clip. No Cheese is the only main platforming level that you can replay and be warped to the next level at the end. It's fairly common knowledge at this point that there was a scrapped level in the game simply referred to as GG01, which was a scrapped Goofy Goober platforming level set to take place before Sunday Driving, containing 5 challenges. What you might not know is the likeliness of this level being reworked into I'm Ready Depression. Patrick has some unique dialogue implying he thinks he's asleep.
I'd like to wake up now.
The level in general is very bizarre compared to the other quote-unquote real-world levels, and it's also the only level with 5 tokens. There's more I could talk about relating to this, but I'm planning on a video relating to beta stuff in the future. I'm Ready Depression is one of the first instances in the game where it starts showing how the game as a whole is designed around the upgrade system, as the Up Chocolate Creek challenge is impossible to access upgrade lists without speedrun strats. The buttons used to activate the challenge here will instantly reset if you don't have the Macho Throw or the Macho Sonic Wave Guitar. Combat Arena challenges used to not be on this generic plateau. They used to take place in the arena that would later be used in the fight against Mr. Whiskers, and leftovers of this can still be found in the files. Assets for the Frogfish Arena can be found in the second Combat Arena, and the arenas in both the Combat Arenas and Frogfish Arena seem to have very similar modeling. A theory made by Purple Foundation is that the Combat Arenas simply did not exist at some point. Instead, the boss battles would have opened with an enemy rush. We currently don't have any actual proof of this theory, however, given the fact we only see one combat arena be shown in the Frogfish Arena in the beta, I'm willing to bet the theory has some sort of truth to it. There is a claim in the Heavy Iron modding server that Sandwich Driving 101 is built off of downtown streets from Battle for Bikini Bottom. This claim is not entirely wrong, as upon loading both levels in the Industrial Park editor, pieces of downtown streets can absolutely be identified. Funnily enough, both of these levels are referred to as BB01 in the files. 3,000 miles to Shell City is actually different depending on which console you're playing it on. There's an Easter egg near the end of the level where SpongeBob is balancing on a rock when you play as Patrick, acting as a mirror to a similar Easter egg. This is present on the Xbox and PlayStation 2 versions, but is entirely missing on the GameCube version. Meanwhile, the Patrick Easter egg is in all three. If you're wondering why this is, the SpongeBob Easter egg actually makes the level crash on the GameCube version when activating the final cutscene. Rub-a-dub-dub Slip Slide in a Tub has an environmental detail signaling when you need to do either a single jump or a double jump, in the form of some breakable signs. A single jump is a red sign, and a double jump is a red and blue sign. However, there's one instance where the incorrect sign is placed. I actually did not know about this until I was working on Community Cut, where it was brought to my attention by Gravity, who's also the one who actually discovered this fact. There is a reason why Mindy refers to these what are very clearly targets as plankton signs. That's because in the beta, they were literally just circular versions of that one plankton sign from BFBB. The disco floor in Bubble Blowing Baby Hunt's Disco Star Challenge is in sync with the music that was actually made for the challenge. Not only that, it's also in sync with the level's original theme. No Weenie Parking Allowed is the first of 2 3-lap courses. However, the level's first challenge can actually be completed in 2. You can get 4 of the 5 keys before the 3rd lap, and upon getting the 5th, you can just turn around and head back to the gate. So really, it's more like a 2 1/4 lap challenge. The music track that goes with the I'll Let You Pet Mr. Whiskers boss fight was actually not made for the SpongeBob movie game. It's an altered piece that comes from the game's Star Trek Shattered Universe. I'll play you some snippets of those versions of the track as well as the movie version. In Rock Slide, there's supposed to be lakes of acid inside the monster sections. However, for some unknown reason, they just don't appear, or rather, they're invisible because they do function perfectly fine. Strangely, the fix for this is simply renaming the asset. Later in the level, the giant lobster monster jump scares you. However, he's replaced by a different monster in the French and Netherlands version, this monster being nicknamed Chris. Now That We're Men is the first of 3 levels to be split into 2 separate levels. However, this was not always the case. Part 2 has a very small remnant of Part 1 at the start, right behind this warp door here. The levels unfortunately cannot be recombined on either the GameCube or Xbox version, but for some reason they can on PS2. However, the same cannot be said for the later 2 levels that are also split into 2 separate sections. Just about everybody knows about this gate that lies here under Now That We're Men Part 2. However, I don't really see a lot of people discuss what this was very likely for. The button that's paired with the gate can only be activated via the throw move or the sonic wave guitar. Given that it's close to an area with a throw fruit challenge, it's safe to say this was originally meant to lock off the area until you got the throw move, which was actually in the next level, which is also probably why this gate was just not used. Apart from the character switching mechanism that is behind the locked gate, which requires you switch to Patrick so you could actually use the throw fruit thing. Holy shit, how did I completely forget to mention that the literal most likely reason this was taken out was because you couldn't switch to the character needed. Shell City Dead Ahead is the second level to be split into 2 separate parts. Remnants of Part 2 can be found just on the other side of Part 1's door. The entirety of 3 Meter Island is here, with functioning slides and even a few crates. These crates are also in Part 2, but they're in slightly different places. As for Part 2, it has the pipe found in Part 1. In fact, you can actually see it right here. Shell City Dead Ahead has a few oddities relating to progression. Really? Right one? Okay. To get to the third TV, just about everybody climbs up this Porto head here. However, you're actually supposed to stack these 2 throw fruit. Speaking of throw fruit, at the end of the level, there is a throw button and 2 Mervs, enemies typically defeated by the throw move, guarding 2 slam buttons that you need to press, seemingly with no throw fruit in sight. This is because this is yet another instance of the game really wanting you to upgrade, as although unlike Chocolate Creek, completing this is possible upgradeless, it is significantly harder. Some more evidence of the levels being split at one point in development is a counter for Shell City Dead Ahead that goes unused. It was originally meant to detect whether or not all 5 TVs were broken. If they were, you would get the token at the end. Since the level is split into 2 parts, this counter does not function. The first version of Dennis is technically the toughest enemy in the game, as he has the largest health bar. Yes, he even has more health than King Neptune himself. Dennis is the only boss in the game to be comprised of 2 separate assets. There's Dennis himself and the SpongeBob bat. This could theoretically mean through the power of modding you can make his bat just about anything. I've yet to see anybody actually do that, but I'm hoping someone does after this video. Sunday Driving, although is the most filler level in the game, was actually one of the first levels made. It was one of the levels shown off at E3. This level contains a lot of BFBB assets, a good chunk of which can be found on paintings and billboards, and all of which being concept art from BFBB. In fact, one of the billboards outside is just a modified version of some Duplicatotron concept art. Googly Eyes and Smelly Knickknacks is the only non-boss level in the game to not have a platforming level equivalent, meaning it doesn't have a music track to pick from when talking to Mindy. So as a solution, the developers picked the Floating Blocks theme. Sandwich Driving 101 should technically count as part of this too. However, the level actually does have a platforming variant, that being No Cheese. The conversation music being the menu theme was just the devs being weird, I guess. Dennis Strikes Back has 2 sky domes, strangely enough. I have no idea why the second one exists, but I do know it exists. Dennis here is also a direct copy of the Dennis 1 fight, but with a different arena, different enemies, and a shorter health bar. I found this out while testing a theory in the modding server that the 2 Dennis fights were the exact same fight, only to find out when swapping the fights, yeah, they are the exact same fight, just with the differences I have already mentioned. The only other major difference being it appears Dennis 2's projectiles are a little faster than Dennis 1's. Welcome to Planktopolis. Minions is the last level to be split into 2 parts. The giant dome of the dungeon can be seen at the end of part 1, and a decimated version of pretty much the entirety of part 1 can be found just outside the warp door for part 2. Believe it or not, there is a reason for why the Ultimate Combat Arena Challenge is a joke level. The pattern with the combat arenas is they tease whatever the next SpongeBob level is. Well, in the case of Welcome to Planktopolis, that would actually be the first level, No Cheese, a level where the only enemies are jellyfish. As to how this is the next level, completing the final boss and leaving the credits actually does warp you right to No Cheese, therefore making it the next SpongeBob level. There is a very strange oddity involving Planktopolis Part 1's environment. There's a couple random breakable flags that serve no real purpose. My personal theory is that this was originally for an extra, my only real piece of evidence being that the Planktopolis Spongeball level is the only Spongeball level with an extra, and the fact shit like the Toast extra exists. Drive of the Knucklehead McSpazatron is very clearly built off of Sandwich Driving 101, but what you might not know is how little the original level was actually modified. The only true differences outside of some vertex coloring and textures is the triple tunnel being in a slightly different spot, and the final stretch being surprisingly different. Turn the Tables on Plankton is the only case in the entire game where the geometry is replaced with completely different geometry for cutscenes, which is why the intro and outro are so bright compared to the actual fight. You can actually see some of this brighter version just straight up not being replaced. Buckethead Neptune is the only boss in the entire game to not be a beefed up generic enemy. Mr. Whiskers is just a fusion of a flinger, slammer, and spinner. Meanwhile, both versions of Dennis are just reskinned poppers. In fact, some of Dennis 1's assets actually refer to him as a popper, and for both of the Dennies, you can even see the popper smoke appear whenever they land. Meanwhile, Neptune appears to not have a single trait from any of the enemies present in the game. I suppose to bookend this video, let's talk about another area reusing some BFBB geometry. The 100% cutscene uses a reworked version of the Krusty Krab map from BFBB. Unlike No Cheese's version of Con Street, though, this is a direct rip of the map, and it is heavily decimated.
And that just about does it for me. Like I mentioned at the start of this video, please go watch Dusty Waltzy's video when it comes out. I hope you all enjoyed this video. As for what's next for me, that's not Music Swap related and is actually going to be available on the channel, I'm planning on doing a beta video relating to actually the game we just talked about today, as well as SpongeBob's Truth or Square. Now, why both games? Well, I'll say it when that video comes out too. We simply just don't know anything near as much for these two games as we do with games like BFBB. So that being said, this is the
Name and address withheld.
signing out. Yeah, that's right, I use that for outros too. What of it?